Hi and welcome to The Light Leaders, a podcast for light workers who want more money, power and impact. I'm your host, Alex E. Lember. I believe that we are currently in the middle of a global awakening of humanity and that leveraging entrepreneurship is the fastest way to raise the consciousness of our planet. So in this podcast, I interview light workers and conscious entrepreneurs who follow their soul mission and have built a business around it. I call them light leaders, and this is the new paradigm. You will hear their stories and, more importantly, receive tools, tips, and strategies on how you can also impact more people and grow your business while following your soul mission. If you hear little nuggets you love and you'd like to share, screenshot this episode and share on your Instagram stories. Make sure to tag us at the Light Leaders Podcast and we will repost. There's a device I love and use almost every day. It's called the Healy. It sends specific frequencies to the body. It's been developed by quantum physicists from Germany, and it is the next evolution of health and well-being. It has amazing results. On top of it, it's an entrepreneurial opportunity. This is how I monetize my lifestyle, my brand, and this podcast. So if you're interested in getting this amazing device for yourself, or also in the entrepreneurial opportunity, I would love to help you. You can go to www.thelightleaders.org/Healy, Healy. Hi and welcome to this new episode of The Light Leaders. Today I'm with Gavin Dantez. He has sold millions of dollars of products online. He was featured in Forbes and quoted as the mad scientist of digital marketing and branding in Inc. magazine. For the past 3 years, he has called Bali his home. He is the co-founder of Limitless, a personal evolution company on a mission to upgrade millions of minds for modern times. Gavin, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Alex. Thank you for that lovely introduction.
I have a question I'd like to ask is, what are you grateful for today?
Just presence, It's something that we take for granted, trying to get everything externally when we can just be present in the moment. And it's really easy to get sucked in, and as a marketer, I know this, to all the messages coming from all angles telling us what we need to feel presence, but we can just feel it right now.
Beautiful. Especially coming from someone who achieves a lot, also like you, Gavin. So I love to give context to the listener and start with what is your vision for the world, your why, and how is your business helping to bring this vision into manifestation?
When I was thinking about this question through mentors and over the years, it always changes too, and there's actually so many whys. If you think about it, if you just write down one why, there's not a lot of power behind that. But when you actually see all the impact that your actions will have on your family, your community, the world, there are so many different pieces to it. At one point, a mentor was like, look into the world 20 years into the future and ask yourself, how is the world different because of the actions you took, Then it really starts to show you what actions that you are going to have to start taking in order to create a world like that, however it is. And since there's billions of us all taking different actions, we're going to have to get really damn good at whatever that thing is if we're going to try to create that reality. And it's never going to be exact because everyone's got a different version of it. But I just remember just thinking about simple things like walking into a coffee shop or a restaurant and people having the type of conversations that we're going to be having today. And that being the normal versus the normal being, gossiping and talking shit about people and talking about just real big trivialities that are just keeping us in this distracted state all the time. people sick, people talking about all the pain in their body and their mental problems and how they hate their job. And like, that's, usually what's being talked about. But instead of these like finite games of just like strictly lower level competition, even within the body, emotional competition, all of this, to like more of the infinite games where people are talking about how we're all creating the best versions of ourselves individually so we can collectively create better results, right? And this is what I find is really a big issue in the world right now, going into more of this socialist, communist mentality, whereas the individual is actually the greatest minority. And when you play identity politics, you put people in these groups against each other and not realizing that true freedom comes individually, comes from the inside. And if you can't respect an individual, then you're not actually a defender of minorities in the first place, because the greatest minority on earth. So I just can see that in the future of all these personally evolved people who have really taken full responsibility for their own consciousness, their own results, their life, so that there's no more victim mentality. There's no more like snowflake mentality of like, oh, that person said something mean to me, so I'm going to like feel bad my whole life. Because if we're sitting around hoping everybody else is going to change in order for us to feel better, we're going to have to send all of them to the psychiatrist for us to feel better. It's the only way, right? But if I'm okay no matter what somebody says, because it's just a projection of whatever's going on inside them, and I can experience that, then I can actually have empathy for that person in the first place. But I just see through Limitless and through what we're doing is just being able to help people from so many different angles, from the angles of understanding the natural laws, from understanding their own psychology, having an owner's manual for their mind and their emotions, which we were never given in school. It's just crazy, right? To start to understand this technology, but also understand the timeless principles. This is a big thing. The ancient wisdom that's been around forever and it's part of everything. And when we started waking up as humanity and learning the philosophy and decoding kind of the art of life, right? And then also understanding that science and how things are moving forward exponentially. And it's not something we can avoid. We have to bring in those timeless principles and fuse them together with the futuristic technology.
And so is that your goal with the online platform you're co-founder of, Limitless?
Mm-hmm. There's so many angles to it. Everybody's different, but yes, this is a big goal, is bringing together those timeless principles and fusing it with the futuristic technology. So it's an art and science of life. A lot of times we'll get into the really amazing spiritual world, right? And maybe we'll go into the plant medicine and meditation and yoga and learn how to feel bliss and learn so much about these different realms and experience and feel it. Sometimes we can get lost there and float around there, and it's hard to create a lot of tangible results and create big impact in the world, because we also have to then learn this technology and see that, one video I create, if used properly with advertising or optimizing on Google or search engines or whatever, that one video can then be seen by millions of people. But it's not going to be seen if I just film the video and I just hope it's going to happen. Mm-hmm. That's just hope marketing. That's just wishing. There is a science and precision to this reality, which I think is amazing. A mathematical precision, meaning I can go to McDonald's every day and eat unhealthy and not exercise, and I know the result that I'm going to get. And these laws like cause and effect are in motion all the time. Like if I jump off the cliff, it doesn't matter if I believe in God or not. I fall to the ground with gravity. And some people might find that a kind of like a prison way of looking at it, like we're bound by these laws. And I think it's quite beautiful, because that means once the laws are decoded, we can engineer our future. We can architect our future and with precision create it. So the manifestation part is beautiful in terms of creating that vision and just like sitting in it and things coming to you because you're attracting it because of who you're being. But then there's the other side, which is the precision and the mathematics to it. And I really like that side because it's like kind of that masculine essence of it. It's like you can really create it, but not just for yourself, for the world. So when you have this mission of big change, we can't avoid that part. But we also can't avoid the art of life and the loving of life and the enjoyment of life and the presence and the flow state right? That won't come from logic. So
And I think you're tapping quite a bit into your feminine side too when you create, right?
Totally.
And maybe we'll go back on it. I also want to share with the listener, we've done an episode on the podcast together already that was called Becoming a $1 Million Teacher, which was really interesting about in the world of today, how you can share your knowledge and become an entrepreneur through it and have a lot of impact. And today you talked a bit about marketing. We'll talk quite a bit about it to help people. How can they, as you said, create great program, create great content, but then how to get it into the world. So people, if they have a gift and they want to impact humanity in a positive way, how can you get that more efficiently across?
Yeah.
I can encourage people to listen more to the previous episode to know a bit about you, but I always like to give a little bit of context. So in 3 minutes, could you share a bit about how you got into that very intense and dedicated personal growth journey, leading you now to create online programs to awaken people?
Mm-hmm. Well, there's always so many angles to this, and I always like to just bring some different angle each time, as much as possible, just thinking back to what those things were.
And actually, that's part of the marketing too, having a story.
Yeah, a lot of people, and this is something actually that drives me crazy a lot of times about the marketing, is it's so marketing, you know, and it's so based off of, I crafted the perfect story of my past so I can sell more, right? And I get that. It makes sense. But then I start listening to some of these guys, and every time they do a podcast, it's like they're a robot telling the same thing. And it's the same pitch. And that's beautiful on one level because they've tried to fine tune, but most of the time you just try to cherry pick. It's like the highlights, you know? But what about the other stuff? There's so many things that happened to me when I was a kid. I always felt like there was something wrong with the world. Like I always had a weird feeling about everything. And I remember one time I was in French class, and we were all counting up to 100. That's French. And we were all counting up to 100, and we got to 60, and I was like, 60, 61, 62, 63, you know, and the rest of the class went on to 70, you know, and they skipped 60. And I was the only one still counting at 60 up until like 65. And my teacher was like, you know, because we were all in a circle. He's like, keep going. But I just ended up skipping back up to where they were at 75 because I felt like I was like awkward. I was the only one standing out. But I was looking around that, and I kind of noticed how the kids were kind of looking at the more popular person. And then like everyone kind of went to it. And I didn't think much of it at the time, but I just realized like, there's some crazy psychological thing happening there where everyone needed to follow somebody else or else they would have been uncomfortable, you know? And I was the only one, even though I only went a little bit longer, but I was like questioning it. So since a young age, I was always questioning things when I was at like church and Sunday school or this, that. I was always questioning, like, how does that part of the story make sense? How does this? How does that? It was just part of my way of being. And I had so many different things throughout my life happen that just ended up leading me down a different path. But some of that led me to selling drugs. You know, some of it led me to just working really crappy jobs, to like doing a lot of drugs, to drinking so much, to just like suppressing so much. But at the same time, I was still like a high level athlete as like in my teenage years. But I always kept like getting injuries or this, that, and it would always go back to some level of escapism. And it was a feeling of not having and knowing a purpose, of not feeling understood, of not having anyone around me I could really talk to. But I also wasn't doing personal development at that time. So I didn't know how to articulate any of the feelings I had. And like Neo in the Matrix, when he goes and sees Morpheus, right? Neo represented the neocortex and Morpheus represented the truth. And this whole idea was when you're following the right white rabbit, or when you're following those signs and symbols, that synchronicity, and you're pursuing something outside of the matrix or outside of what everyone else believes, you get led to truth. And when he said to Neo, he's like, you felt it your entire life that there's something wrong with the world. It's like a splinter in your mind driving you mad. What we need sometimes is someone to articulate our emotions and our feelings and what we felt is going on around us, but couldn't put it into words to communicate to ourselves.
And that's the light bulb moment.
This is where whoa, right? So what happened for me was I started going down different paths in general. I had a near-death experience that woke me up. I wanted to do something different, but I still wasn't there. Then I met a mentor who was more in the fitness space, started training with him, started realizing, wow, I can like do individual stuff to get myself results. It doesn't have to be team sport. I can really take control of myself.
And can we go fast forward also? Because I know then you've really got into reading a lot of books.
That's exactly where it is. So then that's where got invited to like a network marketing meeting, went to this, was like, whoa, there's another way, right? Did that for a while, but I remember this guy gave me a hard drive with these books on it with guys like Tony Robbins and Brian Tracy. And when they were speaking, when I was driving and putting it in my ears, it was like everything I was like feeling, you know, but not even, it's not that I knew that stuff. I just felt the truth in it. It was so obvious. Whereas I would give other friends of mine the same material, and since it was against like the mainstream narrative, their brain was rejecting the information. Like these guys were like selling snake oil. And I'm thinking to myself, how is a guy talking about personal responsibility? Snake, you know what I mean? It just, yeah. As soon as I went down that path, I read hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of books. And that was like the beginning of the journey. And there was just no turning back. You know, once Morpheus says, he's like, and Neil's like, can I go back? He's like, no, but if you could, would you really want to, you know? Like the ignorance is bliss mindset. I can never go to that.
And so now you're building that platform, Limitless. Do you want to share a little bit more about what it is?
Yeah, man. So first off, it was in 2018, after about 8 years of doing the online marketing, I finally was able to scale my e-com to like 3 million the first year. And there was different successes and different failures throughout the journey. But at that point, all of these things came together, from branding, from Facebook ads, from understanding the copy, from understanding how to put the pictures together. There was like, just on the website alone, 60, 70 psychological triggers and way it pieces together. Like a website or like a building can't be a building if you just throw a bunch of bricks in a pile, you know? And same if you want to like bake a cake, you don't put the flour in after baking the cake, right? There's order and processes and ways things feel and look that's like much more scientific. And over time, you start to see those things and start to piece them together. So at that point, when I scaled that, I was like, I just need to do something with more purpose in my life. You know, we're not here for long enough. We don't have enough time individually in our conscious being that we are now. So we have to really figure out what are our strengths, gifts, and talents, and how can we put that out in the world. So as I did all these personality tests like Ikigai, 16 personalities, Hexaco, the wealth dynamics, I started really seeing, okay, you keep getting to the same thing, which is teacher. Over and over, this is that strength that keeps coming up. The marketing and all of that are strengths in terms of I love learning and developing and psychology and all that. You can apply it to that. But at the end of the day, it's like that teaching side. I love being around teachers. I love being around leaders. I love being around people who are discovering and pushing the boundaries and in all areas of life. So Limitless was something where I said, how do I bring together these teachers who are limitless, you know, who have just gone down different paths that are not the traditional and totally broken their minds free of what is possible, right? Because what is possible to the average person is only possible because it's what everyone believes is possible. But like Elon Musk says, most people learn through metaphors, analogies, and stories that are just passed down from generation to generation is what everyone else believes. He's like, start with first principles. Start from there, then reverse engineer. Is it possible? And it doesn't matter how many people believe it's possible. Is it possible? Because reality is created by validation. The more people all believe something, the more it becomes a truth in their mind. So Limitless is an education platform sharing people how to break free from all that mentality, the conformity, the social majority, and being able to design that vision. Create your perfect day. What does your life look like from the moment you wake up to the moment you go to bed? What would that ideal movie in your mind be on a regular basis? How would that look in terms of contribution, purpose? Who would you surround yourself with? What would you eat? What would you do for passion? What would you do for hobby? What does that look like? You know, who is that being inside you? What are they called to do? and then design that, but I have the tools to actually fully reverse engineer and create it. Like, it just makes total sense. And then having a community of people around that are all doing the same. Because the message I get on Instagram every day, wow, everything you're saying, whether it's about the lockdowns and all this crazy shit happening in the world that is just like controlling people's minds, or it's about business or living free or living in Bali or creating a business, you're like, everything you're saying, like, that's how I feel, but I have nobody around me that's like that. Everyone believes in this, everyone believes in that. So people are like really in this prison, and we become who we surround ourselves with. It's like ontological design. We build a church, we go inside the church, that church builds us. We build iPhones, those iPhones build us. It's a constant feedback loop of design. So we need to learn how to consciously set up our environment, set up the knowledge that we put in our brains, set up our habits, set up everything so we win the game beforehand, which is the philosophy of the samurai, win beforehand, right? How do you set up all those things beforehand? Because you know what your vision is. And then you know if you put these things in place, because a precise universe built by these laws, that it's going to be inevitable that those will be the results that I create. You have to become it, but it's inevitable if you do, right?
And with what you're doing with Limitless can make me think, for example, of what Mind Valley has been doing. I'm sure there are other ones. I've had a few people in the chair talking about being niche. When I look at Limitless, it doesn't look very niche. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, everything.
And that in the context of, because I want here to help the listener also build their business themselves and give them advice on that.
Yeah, so if somebody is building their business around a specific type of yoga, this is a great niche business. And then if you want to be the personal brand around that and you want to build around that exact type of community, amazing. Yeah, this is exactly what you do. If you want to build your business only around like a set of values like Nike, which just honors great athletics, right? Or Apple, which wants to give people technology, or people with passion, technology that they can change the world with, that's a different type of brand. So Nike is built around a feeling. So it's not basketball, it's not soccer, it's not, it's built around a feeling of athletics. Whereas other companies will be only building the exact soles of shoes, right? They build the soles that make people run as fast as possible, or they're just for sprinters or whatever. And that's totally cool. It really depends on what you want to do. So Limitless is built around the values of anything is possible. It's honoring those people who were told they couldn't do it in every area, but they broke free from that mindset, right? And that can be in so many areas, but I know that our audience is like the Neo in the Matrix. They've been living within this world of rules, this world of believing what is possible and what's not, this world of believing that Captain Crunch is healthy for you for breakfast. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, we get set up all of these things around us, and they want the knowledge in each area of their life. In relationships, they know it's bullshit when someone says, oh, I just don't understand women. Women are crazy. Or men like, oh, women always do this. It's like, well, have you studied masculine and feminine dynamics? These are types of energies that we can study and learn to dance with. It's not some only mystery that we can just say they're crazy because I think different. Health, there's so much we've learned about health where we can create optimal energy in our body. We can eat great food. We can sleep. So, like, these things are all set up for us if we go find that knowledge. But it's not mainstream. Like, nothing mainstream is going to be thing that we really want to follow. If it was, then I would just go to the doctor every day and ask advice on nutrition. Well, one time I went to the doctor and they said my sugar was low and they told me to drink some more Coca-Cola. It's like actually kind of crazy when you look at it, because it's not about preventative medicine, it's about fixing the problem once it's happened. So, let's give this person antidepressants versus, have you tried meditation? Who are you surrounding yourself with? Do you have purpose in your life? What are you waking up and doing for morning routine?
Do you think we're going in that direction?
In terms of learning this?
Do you think the world is going in that direction at the moment?
At the moment, I feel things are getting much worse. Just because censorship and control, and it's a really sad thing because I think we definitely were going more in that direction. But there's definitely a subset of the population that's very much going in that direction. And it's more than it's ever been, for sure. But what's happening to the majority, I feel like, is getting stronger in the opposite direction. Because from a marketing perspective, right, you got everything, credit cards, pornography, sugar, every angle, your attention is being taken up by messages telling you you're not enough, telling you to fear things, telling you that you should social distance. Kids growing up not being close to each other. This is like going to cause insane amounts of psychological trauma and issues. So it's going to be a very interesting future psychologically, which is where the cause starts. Our health deteriorates first with the way we think. And this isn't going to be something people are going to say you're right scientifically. It's like, oh no, it's from this. As soon as I started to truly be more at peace, like I stopped getting sick. Like dis-ease causes disease. We're constantly in this low-level anxiety states. Human beings are like the only animals on the planet that can constantly live in a state of anxiety and dis-ease by creating future visions of fear and scarcity, right? Other animals are just like living in peace, and then the lion comes and they run away and they're fearful, but then they go back to that equilibrium. Humans, we can constantly make ourselves sick. And if the news media and everything is around us all the fucking time, we're just in this state constantly of fear, constantly overthinking. So the goal, like we talked about before, is we got to go back to those principles. I would much rather not live with an iPhone if I was only using that iPhone to be like a dog on a leash, you know? Now that thing can be used for fucking amazing things, for building a business, for spreading incredible content and messages and helping people and connecting with people around the world. Or it can be used where it's just you take every notification, it's like ding, 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 and all day you're just like looking at this thing and it's just destroying your brain.
Yeah, you become, it's the phone using you, not you using the phone.
Technology is like fire. Like fire can cook your food or it can burn somebody alive. Like everything is a neutral thing. But since every company now, in order to even compete, has to hook people up on EEGs and test their dopamine hits and see exactly when to trigger things, whether it's in video games or apps. It's not inherent. It's not like the reason isn't just to be evil. It's to compete and earn money for your shareholders, you know?
And actually, that's something, interestingly, that got a bit more into the mainstream with Netflix documentary, The Social Dilemma, which I was happy that they did that with Tristan Harris.
Yeah, to me, it's just wild that this stuff has been known for so long, you know, that people don't think about that. Yeah. But again, I don't see this stuff as coming always from like a wanting to hurt people. It's just how else do you compete with the company that's doing it? Yeah. So you have to fight against it. So the only thing that we can do again is build ourselves individually. You have to take responsibility for your own life.
And to go, you're a specialist of marketing, and we talked about companies using the message of not being good enough. I'd be curious, what is your take on using marketing in a way that feels integrity and that doesn't play on that not good enough feeling that kind of works with some parts of the population. So if people like leaders who listen to us want to promote the divine mission and their offerings to the world, how can they do it in a way that that is effective, but at the same time in integrity?
This is a hard one because no matter what, you can't always be responsible for how somebody feels. So let's say it's a beautiful Rolls-Royce commercial or something, and I watch these commercials and see how amazing they put them together. These commercials are never showing someone in a bad situation and say, oh, you're this, you should get this. They're just painting this beautiful dream reality. And some people will feel less by watching that, you know? So we can't control that. Is it inherently wrong for them to show somebody at the highest level of status creating this whatever? Or is that just the vision of the person that they are showing you that you want to become? And now that's the gap from where you are to where you want to be. And now you want to become that. I'm super, super happy that so many people played on how I was feeling and my insecurities because it made me take action to better myself. So I really like the mindset of like, yes, you are perfect and you are, great where you are, but you can be better. You know? And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. That's just evolution. Now, do I want to go out and just tell somebody they're like a loser? For me, that works. If somebody comes to me and is like, man, I see so much more in you and you're being a fucking loser, that works on me because I like that challenge. And if it's coming from truth, where I am just like wasting away and doing, then I can take that because I can see where it's coming from. It's actually coming from love. But then there's the other places, which is just trying to tear somebody down purposefully, make them feel less, then selling them their self-confidence back to them in the form of a product. This is a big difference. This is actually what all luxury brands do. If you really want to look at it, if someone wants to understand a really powerful principle right now, human beings were built to really to survive and replicate. Like at the very core level, we're replicating machines. We're survival machines. If that's the case, then we're going to want to find the best strategies in order to survive. And we're tribal creatures. Who are the people that have always survived the most? Well, they're the ones that gain the highest status. They're the ones who rise up in the social hierarchy. Now, how do you rise up on the social hierarchy? Well, there's many reasons. There's attractiveness, there's strength, there's power, there's so many different ways, charisma. There's a million different ways and ways to do it. But brands started to really understand this, big brands. And they realized that people want to rise up on the social hierarchy because then more people will be attracted to them. More people attracted to you will give you better chance at mates and better chance in building alliances and surviving. So these brands were like, okay, well, people want to stand out and be at the higher level, but they also need the feeling of fitting in. Because if you were to go on stage and publicly speak, you get really nervous. Why? Because in tribal times, that would feel like if I say the wrong thing, I'm going to get banished and that meant death, So we're so scared of public speaking because it almost is the same as feeling like death.
And do you feel that applies to everyone, even people who have already done the work of like being more self-aware? I'm thinking of a listener maybe who would have, let's say they're a coach or they have online programs and their target, the customers, their audience are people who have done already quite a lot of personal development work. Do you feel then those triggers would still apply a lot or not as much?
Everything in life is still competition and hierarchy and social status. We'll pretend it's not when we get to higher levels, but it's still there. We'll still wear certain clothes to fit in. We'll still fight against certain ideologies, form of competition. We'll still bring our team together in order to make the world better, which is just a competition against the world. Everything is still there, just at different levels. But we still have that. It's still a war of ideas. So yeah, it's still there, but we're just more conscious of it. So it's not controlling us the same way. It's not just an instant thing. But back to the high-level brands, because people, they understand this is powerful, is these brands would realize, okay, people want to stand out while also fitting in. So we need to give them a way to wear a brand, wear a logo that tells everybody else around them that they are higher status, but everyone collectively believes it's higher status, so they're also fitting in. So it's the safest way to stand out. That's what luxury brands have created. That's how they can actually control our minds and pay a 3,000% markup for something that's worth the same amount as the other shirt that we would never wear without the brand name, right? Even though it's the exact same thing. This is how Gucci can sell completely ridiculous looking clothes because it has the Gucci logo. Someone will feel safe wearing it.
Yeah, but again, I don't know if it would apply to, well, for example, when I buy clothes, I want beautiful clothes, but I also want clothes that are made in an ethical way, both for the environment and the people who are creating this.
Yes.
And like there's definitely, like, you could say there's something around status about it. It's true that it's in resonance with my tribe, but deep down is also something that I feel has some truth and realness to it of what I want it to be, even before belonging to the tribe.
Absolutely. Again, everything is the hierarchy, but then also marketing is about values. Mm-hmm. Marketing is about core values. Mm-hmm. So you're not going to buy from a company that doesn't align with your values, you know, which is beautiful. So if I'm a company selling products, services to you and the tribe, then I'm going to make sure, what are the values? It's ethically sourced. It's this, it's that.
And that's why I think that's important. I feel like a lot of the old paradigms marketing is around status. And I'm not saying it has disappeared in the new paradigm, but I feel it's more centered around values. And I feel there's a different way maybe then to adapt. Maybe we can talk more about how do you do well marketing that is more around core values.
Yeah, man. I have a very, my look in psychology and like the depth of human nature is, again, like if you were to see it from like the status standpoint, yes, we peel back a lot of these layers when we do the work. But the things are all still there. And the reason I say that is because you can just see it in the feminine eyes. It's so hardwired biologically for the feminine to be more attracted to the leader of the tribe, the leader of men, the man and who has all of these different tick boxes that are unconscious, but they feel. And if they have those things, the level of safety they feel with that man to be protected is very high. So let's say you've done all the work, you've done all this, you've done all that, but then this woman is with the man that can't protect her. That means at any point in time, the tribe can be raided, you know? And that feels unsafe for her and her children. So these drives are there no matter what. And yes, we go down deeper layers and we peel off all the layers of the onion to find as much truth as possible. The layers will still be there. So we need to keep those in play while also going to the next levels. So even Maslow's hierarchy is the perfect place to start with this. And this will really get into the deeper level of values. But we have the safety and survival needs at the bottom of the pyramid. If you're hungry and you are driving down the street and you're absolutely starving and you see like the pizza shop or like the bookstore, like it's much more likely you're going to go into the place for food than for knowledge at that point. Now, of course, you start to peel back layers of that too, and you start to do fasting and you start to do other things. But if you're on your very last breath and you need food, I don't care how much you've done in fasting, you're going to eat that food to survive, you know?
Go to the quinoa salad shop.
Exactly. So if you get to that last bit, then you go up to like the love and connection needs, right? So now if you're by yourself like Tom Hanks in Castaway, eventually you're on the island and you're yelling at a volleyball. Like, we're tribal creatures. We need to be around human beings. It's nice to go on these silent retreats and whatever, but do you want to do that for 60 years? Eventually you're going to go crazy. We're wired for that. And then we have our self-esteem needs. Like, we want to feel like we're really doing something of value. We want to feel like we're rising up in the social hierarchy. Like, people have respect for us because of whatever reason. And then self-actualization. We want to evolve and develop ourselves. And then, like, when Maslow was dying, he realized there's another level of like transcendence. Like, transcend beyond just like the need to like keep doing things, and how do I just leave something behind and make sure that my knowledge gets passed on and other people are being helped regardless of what happens to me. There's all of these levels, and in order for us to like really start to understand what we're doing in our marketing, we got to really start to understand where our tribes are, but where are those values in them. So I always start, the easiest way that I start with this is I just draw a line down the page and write down what does my tribe like stand for, what do we stand for, and what do we stand against, you know? and really understand that at a deep level. So with Limitless, I make sure that people know that if there's a big victim mentality, that it's everybody else's fault in the world, like this isn't for you. Like we're not teaching people that are going to complain that everybody else is causing all the problems in their life. Because then you can't change anything. It doesn't make sense. Like Limitless isn't going to change the world. We're going to leave that to the people who actually enroll in the university, in the masterclass. But there's no point in helping people enroll and telling me that if you do this, everyone else is going to change for you. No, it's up to you. It's personal responsibility. There's nothing else that will allow that to happen.
And you talked a bit about in your creative process. Like when I see you have that very masculine energy. I follow you on Instagram, boxing and routines. But I know you also tap into that feminine also, for creative energy. Can you expand a bit on this?
Yeah, definitely. So like one of my partners, Axel, he's like a architect, the INTJ on the personality types, and he's so good at structure. Same with like some of the richest people in the world over time, like Bill Gates and others. They're, whatever you think about their values is different, but they are absolute masters of architecting. They can see how all of the dots and pieces connect, and it's so logical. It's incredibly powerful to be able to think like that. And it's very little feminine energy. Very small amount of flow, and art and design and beauty. This is why PC and all of his stuff never was like nicely designed. It was very logical. This is why you could change everything in the code and build so much more, where Apple was about the end result, which was the customer. Apple cared more about how can we just give them one button and make it beautiful and they can use it and do stuff with it. Complete opposite way of seeing it. So for me, I need to be in the creative. So yes, I can understand his side and I can super respect it and I love it, but I need to be always in the creative where I can do this thing over here and this thing and that, and then somehow that epiphany comes from all of it. Creativity is just taking multiple elements and bringing them together and making them work, in a congruent way. So it's like you don't just take the best piece of a Porsche or Rolls Royce and put it together. That's, a pile of junk. But how can you take the best principles from all of it and put it together in a congruent way? And I think like the feminine is about the art of life, the flow of life, the presence without needing a goal, right? Whereas the masculine is that future goal-oriented, needing a result. This is why arguments with the masculine and feminine are such a disaster, because the man's always trying to solve a problem. The woman's just trying to experience certain emotions, right? So sometimes a woman will get mad at their man just because he's not present. And the man will try to solve the problem when all she's looking for is present love, And it's just going back and forth. She's like, no, I don't want to go to the movies tonight, and that's not what she's saying at all. She's like really just saying you're not present and it's annoying me, so now I don't want to do that. And the man takes it as a logical statement, whereas a woman's trying to get him to be present. And so it's like we need to be able to see those things in ourselves. So if I'm only logical, I'm going to be miserable. It's also what Einstein said about like, we need God and logic, We need that beauty and that belief in something greater. Well, we also need to understand the principles and the logic. So I love to bring all of it. This is why I also experience the plant medicine and sometimes do the ecstatic dance and do these different things that are kind of sometimes even outside of the comfort zone, but just let go. Be present, enjoy it. Why am I just going after goals in the first place? If you really go peel back enough layers there, where's that stemming from? Most of the time it's stemming from some sort of childhood trauma or a need to impress or need to prove something or need, As a Man Thinketh, what a good book, talks about all those principles of success. And then the last chapter is serenity. It's like, no, the goal is to have a character that is in peace and is not reactive and someone who actually can just be still, not needing any of this external to feel good about yourself,
Can you market to such people?
Much harder.
How would you market to them?
It's much harder, but you can definitely sell them peace crystals. But for real, if you look at like that whole industry, right? It's the same thing in a different way. But when I go into crystal shops and different things, I'm like, looking how crazy like people are spending their money, some of these items, and it's a lot of money for just like stones because they value the energy. They value that something way greater than what other people can see. Bill Gates bought Leonardo da Vinci's journals for $30 million because he valued the effort and the knowledge and the time spent into those pieces of work, whereas someone else would think that's complete insanity. Someone who thinks crystals are just rocks wouldn't spend any money on it, whereas someone else can spend a lot of money on a tiny crystal or a piece of art that someone put so much time and effort into, and because they see beyond just a piece of something and they see the effort and the meaning behind it, they'll pay for that, right? They pay more for meaning and purpose and helping another human being and respecting another person than they do just that brand label that's going to make them look cool. So how do you tell a story behind that? Paintings. When someone buys a beautiful painting by a dead artist who's famous, they're thinking about putting it on the wall and having their friends come over and telling that story. That's where the value is. The value is not just in the way the art looks itself, or else we would just get a printout of it and put it on the wall. You see? Like, it's also, there's rarity behind it, and there's other things. There's so much more behind it. But yeah, I think in that space, how do you align with the values so people feel that you really, really understand them? And then how do you really tell that story, How do you build meaning into it? Because it's our responsibility to build the meaning. It's not their responsibility to know that this crystal has certain energy. If you go in and just see random colors of crystals, it's not the same as when you read the little note saying what it is and what type of energy it is when you meditate with it. Do you see what I'm saying? This really, you feel that. So it's much more in that space about brokering the feelings and the emotions and getting that within that person, and that's where the weight behind the actual cost of the item comes from.
And do you do anything like there could be labeled sometimes as woo-woo, but that I know a lot of my audience may do also in terms of marketing? There are things more like prayers or communication directly with the quantum field, or even writing a love letter to your ideal client that you put on the altar. Do you have practices around it?
Oh man, I wish. Yeah, this sounds pretty cool.
Or even using the law of attraction in that way.
So like, yeah, the whole thing with like Joe Dispenza and all of these things, or all of it with the quantum field. Yeah, like do whatever practice, anything. Like, I'm not going to sit there and say that putting the love letter on the altar is communicating with anything or not. If it is for you, do the practice. But my experience has been with people who only do those practices, they have a super hard time having their videos with precision reach 1 million people, because it's based off of hoping that prayer does all the work for them. And I think we got to stop copping out and only doing those practices and avoiding the masculine warrior going out and doing the things. We need a balance. But any of those practices that you're doing with prayer and all of that, beautiful. Don't stop. I just know people will say around the world, hey, let's all pray for this like tsunami that just happened, Yes, okay, but then let's go put money towards it, fly there, whatever we can do to stop it. Oh, I prayed for it, it's good now. So where's that balance? But yeah, all those practices I totally think are cool. I wrote out my perfect day. I did these exercises. The law of attraction is great. But the law of attraction is the laws of attraction, which also includes cause and effect, which also includes action. Law of attraction. What's the last word? Action. So action. So there's so many different laws all coming together to create the manifestation. So if you have these beautiful practices, do them. And then go out and battle for it.
Thank you, Gavin. And we're approaching the end of this episode. I'd love to ask you, what are 3 very simple actions the listener can take right now, especially to help them grow their soul-aligned business?
Perfect. So we've talked about 1. Get super clear on who you are serving and who you're not serving. When people start in marketing, the number 1 thing that I hear from them if I ask them, who's your audience? Everyone, It's going to work for everyone. Yeah, that's going to be the problem, right? You have to be very specific on what their values are and what their values aren't. So when you're building your community, you're building your products, they really align with them.
There are a lot of webinars where they start with who this presentation is not for.
Yes, and it's very important. But a lot of that, again, that's also for manipulative tactics and some of those. But just
not for lazy people.
Exactly. They right away go right into that stuff. But for sure, is that actually what it is, right? If you are teaching people to do some hardcore inner work, this isn't going to be for the person who wants something for nothing. You got to really go through a lot. This is for the person who wants to sit there and only smile the whole process. You might cry, you might be angry, you might go through a lot of turmoil to get past that into the other. But you have to let them up front know that it's not for the faint of heart. It's not for the snowflake, you got to go for this. So I would say right away, if you want something, this is a big one. And then Steve Jobs says, marketing really, really is about values. He's done this speech so many times. When he did that commercial, when he came back to Apple after they kicked him out, and then he came back, and they did that commercial, here's to the crazy ones, the misfits, the round pegs and the square holes. And then they wanted to honor the people who have changed the world, who think different. And then they plastered those billboards all over all the cities of all these famous people who did in all the different areas. Apple went like this. And it had nothing to do with the product. If that isn't the most perfect example of values marketing, it's hard to see anything else.
Simon Sinek's great.
Start with why. This is what it is. So start with the why and the deep level. What are you truly honoring with your business? So if it's yoga, how are you honoring all of those people that came before in that space? So every time someone sees your brand, they are anchored to those feelings. Really think about this. What is branding? Branding is the anchoring of an emotion. So you need to consistently and frequently put messages and pictures in front of your audience that always cause them to have that feeling. So it's anchored every time they start to see the brand over and over. So whether it's the look on the person's face, the coloring, all of that, it goes through this emotional filter every single time. So before you post the image, before you do the thing, it always is going through that emotional filter. So every time that your people are seeing it, they're feeling that emotion. And then they associate that emotion with your brand. There's thousands of emotions. Find what that one is. What is it?
So be precise on the audience. Share your values clearly.
Yep. And then last one, speed of implementation. Every time you learn something, don't go learn something else and keep learning. Speed of implementation. All the most successful people that I've met, they become the knowledge. So they immediately start to apply it. Right away, they learn from that, and they do that so many times, they fail more than most people. But 5 years later, when the other person's still reading, they've actually become the wisdom. Or the other person is just, it's like an attic with dusty books,
Thank you.
Thank you, brother.
So much, Gavin. How can people follow you and what's next for you?
Yeah, come over to the Instagram and at Gavin Dantez and follow me there. We've got limitlessmasterclass.com. You can check out what we're doing there. And then on the other side of things, just the last bit is right now we're living this crazy time with the coronavirus and lockdowns and social distancing and everyone kind of going crazy and losing their jobs and small businesses going under and people going through depression and anxiety and not knowing what to do. The majority of people are falling for it and they're accepting it and they're wanting the government to take care of them. But then there's that 5% who are like, screw this. I want to create what I want to create still in this reality, but I'm just not sure how. Whether they're in the corporate or they're in their business or they're already an investor or whatever, they're trying to get out of that traditional and have more freedom. So what we really help do with our investment side of things is we help people set up the worldwide business systems so people are really in a much better position so they can move anywhere and be anywhere and not just be like kind of stuck. Create digital assets, invest into digital assets that are working for them because we need to be doing it regardless now. There's no choice anymore. It's super, super, super important. So just giving people this ability and then like having them to have access to move to places like Bali and all this. We're really focused on this now. Everybody's been reaching out to us about how do I get off of that system? How do I get off of that way of doing things where I'm like stuck with one path? What happens if the dollar crashes? What happens if this? So people are looking for these ways to be safe while also having these more digital passive investments that are working as well. So that's another side. So reach out to me if that's something that you're interested in.
Thank you so much, Gavin. And we could go for 5 hours.
Yeah, easy.
I'm already thinking of a next episode about where are we going, and I know you've looked a lot into that. But yeah, that'll be it for now. I really want to acknowledge you for your consistency and your dedication to helping people master their mind, raising the consciousness of our planet. And I really enjoy what you're sharing, especially on your Instagram. So definitely encourage people to do that. Thank you to the people who listened. And if you have a last word for the listener, Gavin?
Yeah, just the speed of implementation. I'm telling you, this is the key. Just do it. Learn it and do it. We're living in the greatest time in history. Stephen Hawking said we have about 100 million bits of like useful DNA or, from when we're born. And you can just live with that. And that's kind of like how we lived like 70,000 years ago, right? Or you can be born and you can read 50 books, which is about the equivalent of that. And by the end of your life, you can be like 1,000 times the version of what you would be without gaining these things. So that's the power we have. We can upgrade just like Neo in the Matrix, but we have to implement and be it.
Okay, so you got 3 actions to take right now, but so go and implement them as we finish that episode. Thank you so much, Gavin.
Thank you, brother.
Thank you for taking some of your precious time to listen to this podcast. If you stayed until the end, I assume it was insightful. If you like this podcast, please share with friends. Remember that if you tag us in your Instagram story at the Light Leaders Podcast, we will repost. Tell us what you've learned. You can also leave a review on your favorite podcast platform. Now, if you think I can help you grow your soul mission business, you can register for a free 15-minute coaching call with me. Go to www.thelightleaders.org/free call. Thank you again, and let's co-create the conscious new earth together.